And there's me.
Well.
How is everyone?
Howdy, sugars. How we all doing today? Good to see you all.
Hi, Aria. Oh, yeah. Stand up. You got to stand up.
There's a little one. Oh, my gosh.
We got X23 over there.
So first of all, guys, thank you very much for coming. The X-Men, the original cartoon, is such a seminal part for most of our childhoods, and this reboot, or recarrying on, it's just been such high level of, it's just so amazing. You don't get many chances to bring things back at this caliber. How are you enjoying your weekend so far?
How are you enjoying the weekend so
The who?
far? The weekend. How are you enjoying it so far?
Is it the weekend? No. I thought yesterday was the weekend. I've got to say, this is the best con we've ever been at.
Yeah.
I mean, for wacko crazy fans like you, none of us have ever been this busy ever, like non-stop. Because you love us, you can't help yourself really.
Is this a, oh look at it's on.
You're sounding a bit like Trump there. Hey, everyone loves us, the greatest cast ever, believe me.
Believe me, I would never, ever sound like Trump. Even if I could. And I'm not going to get into it, but I have a brain.
It's scary that the apocalypse is the less
Spoken
scary
like a
villain.
true Canadian.
I know, right?
Now let's make Canada the 51st state. You bird brain. His doofus in chief, we like to call it.
Take that away from me.
All right.
So let's start back at the original series first. How did you three get the roles of Wolverine, Rogue, and Beast?
Beast?
Well, we auditioned for it, and this is it was a general call for voice actors, and they called it Project X, because they wanted to keep it a secret. Of course, they gave away half the bloody title right away. So they weren't really thinking. And Cal, I think, thought it was a show about animals. And I was reading the lines, and I'm going, Project X, my foot. This is X-Men. Because in 1962, when the first comic book came out, I bought it. And I was a fan of X-Men as a kid reading the comic books. And so, having auditioned for this part of Beast, and when I got the call that I got the part, it was probably one of the more exciting times of my career, because here's a part of my childhood that I'm getting to manifest as an adult performer in real life. So that was my story of the auditions.
Wow, well, sugars, a lot of us had been doing film and television and live theater until then. X-Men was only the second animated series that I ever did. And my agent called me one day and said, hey, there's this animated series that they're auditioning for, and they're looking for a character who, they need a woman with a deep, husky, sexy voice who could do a southern accent. And she said, that's you, Lenore.
I turned it down.
The high heels going on, he would have killed you. But, yeah, and so I said, well, I'm busy doing film and television and theater and everything, so, animation, I don't know if I'm that interested in that. And I skipped, I didn't audition for the first auditions. But then she called me again and she said, Lenore, they still haven't found the right actors for this role. They're doing callbacks. And I know that the reason they haven't found the right one yet is because it's you. So get your ass in gear, get down to that studio and do the callback audition. So I said, okay. And then I just took one look at the character, the way she was drawn, with her hand on her hip and her hair back and her head up in the air. And I went, yeah, I think I can handle that attitude. And I just walked into the studio, and the first lines were, my daddy liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant. Yeah. And then it was, I'm boyfriend when I was 13. Had me a boyfriend till I kissed him. Poor boy went into a coma for 3 days. So that was the lines. I remember it like it was yesterday. And then all of a sudden, I heard all these producers in Los Angeles screaming on the other end of the headphones, going, "That's Rogue! Don't let her leave the building." And that's how it happened.
And you're Rocco?
Give me that.
Thank you. I got a call from Karen Gora, who was the casting agent for the X-Men for Fox, not Fox. She lives in Toronto anyway. And she called me because she figured I had a gravelly voice. I had never done a voiceover in my life. I was the singer in Canada, Toronto, the jingles, all that kind of bras, toothpaste, cereal, beer. Anyway, so she said, I just thought, I wondered if you were interested in auditioning for an animated, for a cartoon. I said, cartoon? Everyone wants to do a cartoon. I said, what do I have to sing? She said, no, you're not singing. I said, oh, okay, well, all right. What is it? She said, she could tell me, it's a secret, like George said. So I went to the audition, and I'm standing there, and so I said, they call my name, and they're all behind the glass, and you're in this little box, and they had the script there, which I was perusing, and I said, so why am I here? And they said, oh, you're auditioning for the role of Wolverine. And I said, who's Wolverine? I'm like, or what's Wolverine? Wolverine. I said, who's he? He said, oh, he's like 5'3", tough as nails, would die if had be to fight and to defend the people that he loves and his family, and he's cranky. And that's why, as soon as I heard cranky, I knew it was a shoe-in. Yeah. But I had never read a comic. I didn't know who the hell the X-Men were, nothing, which is very odd. So anyway, they said, so I said, who do you hear him sounding like? And they said, Clint Eastwood, Ward Bond, not Robert Culp, a bunch of other weird names that I couldn't. I said, well, Clint Eastwood is he's like, go ahead, like that very quiet thing through your teeth. And I said, there's a line here I'm reading, and I've never heard Clint Eastwood ever yell in any role he's done. He's always like contained inside stuff. And they said, well, but just me, I said, okay, like the gravelish sort of, yeah, I guess, okay. And they said, and the line, I said, so I read the line to them, and they said, because I asked them who it was, and they said, oh, that's Sabretooth. And I went, again, Sabretooth, I'm Wolverine. Is this an animal cartoon? You sure? No, and so they had to explain the whole thing about the X-Men. I said, well, come on, Sabretooth, this got to be a saber-toothed tiger. I'm a Wolverine, toughest animal, pound for pound, up in northern Canada. No, they're mutants. Which, to me, was like, what the is a mutant? They explained the whole mutant thing, and they said, are you ready to read? They were getting a little anxious. You want an audition soon? I said, would you like to read? I said, sure. And it just came out exactly like this. I looked at it, and then they showed me the picture of it, and I went, well, you should have started with this. Anyway, so it started with this line, and I just read it to Sabretooth, and I didn't know who he was. All right, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash. You always like pushing around people shorter than you. Well, I'm shorter. Try pushing me. And they just kind of went, and there was this silence. The silence, like it was like they were saying, holy shit. So I read the rest of the lines were 15 minutes, whatever, and then they said, thanks, Cal, very much. We'll be in touch. Which is usually like, get lost. But you'll never hear from us again. And then they called the next morning, 2 days, whatever later, said, we would love you to be our Wolverine. And I said, and I would love to be your Wolverine, whoever and whatever he is.
And Ross, when they were bringing it back, how did you get the role of Xavier?
Thank you. So I had heard they were going to revamp the show, and I've said this to y'all many times, but when I was about your guys' age, 11 years old, I watched the original X-Men animated series, and that was the reason why I became an actor, quite literally. There were so many wonderful performances in that series that just really touched me as a kid. I was bullied a lot, got picked on because I was braces and pimples and awkward and just I was a theater kid. I got picked on all the time, and I really resonated with Wolverine's character because he was always just a loner, kind of getting picked on, and I just really said, like, I want to do that someday. And so when I got the word that they were going to revamp the show, I said, I'll audition I'll fly on the wall. I don't care. I really don't care what character. I just asked the team, I was like, what roles are they trying to flesh out right now? And they originally said Magneto and Professor X. And I thought my Magneto was better. My audition was, because it was like, when I heard it back several times, I was like, that's Ricardo Montalban, like from Wrath of Khan. If you hear him, he's like, Charles, you must be mindful of the mutant power we have. And I was like, that's Ricardo Montalban. And I guess they didn't see it that way because they obviously went with Matthew. And I think that was the right choice because Matthew is from the UK.
Hey.
He went to boarding school out here. And he's one of the only cast members who was not aware of the X-Men. Everyone was either legacy cast or was a fan of it before. And he had no idea about the show or anything, but his wife was a fan. And she said, you are auditioning for this? And he is the perfect Magneto. I really feel like Matthew just nailed that character. And every single person who has now stepped in was a fan. And I feel like that's why this show, I think, is so successful, is because every single person who works on it either worked on the original or was a fan themselves of the original. And it's in every single molecule of this show. People really, really care about where it goes, which is why I think it's been a big hit, Yeah.
Including the writers.
Yes, yeah.
And the artists.
Precisely.
Everyone who works on the show right now had to be a fan of X-Men. In the original, the only person who knew who X-Men were was Larry Houston,
Yeah.
the guy who was the originator of the series. Otherwise, the entire staff had to be educated as to what the X-Men were before they started their jobs.
And Larry still goes to Comic-Cons too, and we oftentimes appear with him, and he's amazing. He was the very first black storyboard director in Hollywood. And he was a fanboy. He calls himself a fanboy of X-Men. And of course, when X-Men first came out in the comics, Stan Lee wrote it as basically kind of like the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And so Larry really gravitated to the X-Men. And when he came up with the idea of coming up with an animated series about the X-Men, he took it to every studio in Hollywood, and they all turned him down and said, who's going to want to watch a series about a bunch of superheroes? And there was one woman in the very end. She had just taken over as the executive director of whatever of Fox Kids Network. Margaret Lesh, her name was. And he took it then to her, and she said, I'll do it. I think this can be a huge hit. And so it took a black man and a woman to make X-Men happen.
We have a question that's waiting patiently for us.
If you could have any power, what would it be?
I would love to fly, personally. What about you? You didn't think that the question would get turned around on you. What other ones?
I think invisibility would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
morph.
Yeah, or morph. Morph would be neat.
Morph would be very neat.
Especially because now the new morph, he seems to absorb the abilities of whomever he's being. Like, he can be the Hulk, and he actually has Hulk strength, which I'm like, just be Hulk all the time, dude. I don't know, but yeah, invisibility or the morph, yeah.
Fly.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Fly.
But Morph can fly too, because if he
On
becomes
the wall.
one of the characters that flies, he's flying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Hi. My question is for Ross. It's a bit of a two-part, sorry. I'm a big fan of yours from Walking Dead. Are you a bit sad that Aaron and Jesus never got a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen that, but we decided that even if it wasn't going to be shown on screen, that it happened during that 6-year time jump.
So it is canon, sort of.
Yeah, because we were really influenced by the comics, obviously, and Tom and I decided, even though they're not going to show it on screen, we're going to bake that into the episodes moving forward. So yeah.
And from the people here, do you think they could do well in the Walking Dead universe?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? The mutants in the Walking Dead would clean up. They'd take out all the zombies in a day. It'd be fine. Yeah.
I took out a few zombies in the Christmas Horror Story
There you go. Yeah. Exactly.
with Bill Shatner.
Oh, nice.
Feel free to move the microphone up to your mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Jack. First of all, thank you for everything you have done. I've watched you growing up from a wee child, so thank you for all of that. My main question was, if there's any character you would like to see introduced into the X-Men '97, who would it be and why?
Due to contractual obligations by Disney, we cannot answer that question at this time.
No, we can answer it. It's okay. Yeah. So there's a character that I grew up with as a kid. I really loved it. I always loved Wolverine, but Omega Red is like Russia's answer to Wolverine. And if you don't know who Omega Red is, look him up because he's a badass. He's got tentacles that shoot out of his wrists, and he can drain people's life force. He's an absolute psychopath. But he was Russia's answer to Wolverine. And I really feel like that would be a great... He's in a blip. He's in a one split like hair when they're flashing all around the world after Magneto blacks out the planet. And you see him for like a split second. But I would love to see them pursue that character. Yeah.
And I bet you'd like to play him too.
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind that. Pretty cool.
How's your Russian accent?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, first of all, thank you for everything you've done as X-Men characters. Like, you really made my childhood like the best thing ever. I've got a specific question for Lenore. So,
Microphone.
I got it.
So obviously, X-Men '97 hits a pretty hard episode with what happens with Genosha. And Lenore, you deliver a line when Gambit dies. Sugar, I can't feel you. What? As an actor, sorry. Sorry, I feel like I'm the cosplayers here as well. But as a voice actress, what did you do to take yourself to that point? Because honestly, you deserve like a bloody Oscar, quite frankly. Because I still
Well, to be honest, we had just come out of the pandemic. That was episode 5, so we were newly back to the series again after being away for 25 years. And I knew that a lot of people were grieving because they had lost loved ones during the pandemic. And we were watching all kinds of terrible wars and things like that constantly on the news, and people were dying. And then my young niece, who was only 17, passed away from cancer. And she had been really putting up a good fight for a couple of years. And so I was deeply, deeply grieving personally the loss of my young niece. And I thought, well, if I can put all my authentic grief into my voice so that people can really hear the authenticity of the grief. If they had also lost somebody that they loved recently, or even just in watching all these deaths and these bodies piling up on television, hopefully it might touch them inside to the point where they'd have a cathartic experience and they would cry. And that it would allow them to let their tears and their grief come to the surface and have a healing experience. That was my hope. And that's what I did in the studio. And I did cry in the studio. And I thought it was brilliant that they chose, after my last line, to just cut to black. because that's what death is like. You know, rather than like playing music of some sort, it was just like nothing. And I know that people have said it broke them.
It broke me watching it.
You know, and right, the internet went kind of crazy, and we kind of broke the internet, and it was a really interesting experience because it felt like we were all communally grieving, and I thought that was really quite healing as well, and it was healing for me as well, having just lost my loved one, and that's the story behind it.
Thank you. I'm sorry to lower the mood there a bit.
Hi, I'm shaken, by the way, for like speaking. But if yous four could swap characters, if you could voice a different character from the show, what character would you want to voice instead? Obviously, not including your own.
Well, honey, I just love playing Rogue. I don't think I want to play another character. She's just too much fun.
Really, all the characters.
Go ahead, George.
I didn't know you were about to speak. There was a pause.
Nobody ever does.
I think every character is voiced by the perfect actor in this series. If you look at all the characters, you become the character that you're playing in a lot of senses, and a lot of you goes into the character. So that there's a perfect blend. And there's no other character that I would want to step into rather than Beast.
And I've answered this before, and it's always the same answer. I would rather play Cyclops. You know, Wolverine, they can't stand each other, Mr. Pretty Boy. But I would like to be Cyclops just so I could be with Jean.
We're getting a little bit low on time, so if we can quick fire the questions, that'd be really good. We'll get as many as we can, please.
Hello. What's one of your favourite episodes or storylines from the original show?
So, one of my favorite episodes is part of the reason why I was so attracted to the show and really affected me as a kid that was getting picked on a lot. There was an episode called Cold Comfort that is up in the Alaskan wilderness, or
Cold Vengeance.
Cold Vengeance, my bad, yeah. And Wolverine is up in Alaska or somewhere way, way up north. And he's befriended this Eskimo tribe that's taken him in. And he's doing well. He's dealing with his PTSD. He's fishing, and he's like kind of getting over his trauma. And then of course Sabretooth follows him there. And there's a line that he delivers, and because he sees everything just falling apart, and of course Sabretooth is threatening to kill everyone, and he goes, "There's no peace for me, not even here." And it was so beautiful, and that line as a kid, as a 12-year-old or whatever I was, that resonated with me so much, because I was like, I don't have peace. I don't feel like I'm ever going to be safe or peaceful in my life. And that one really, really stuck out to me. That episode was really strong. Yeah. What about you guys?
My favorite episode was Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
I'd have to say, in the original series, my two favorites were A Rogue's Tale, because you get to hear her backstory, her origin story. And I also loved The Cure, which was the one where she goes to try and get rid of her superpowers. She hears there's a scientist who can get rid of your superpowers, and she wants to be quote-unquote normal, like everybody else, so that she can touch and so that she can have a life. But when she gets there, I mean, not to give it all away, but she, in the end of that episode, she realizes that she needs to actually just embrace herself for who she is. And that she says in the very end, she says, you know, I reckon I am my powers and the good they can do. And I reckon I can live with that. There ain't no cure for who you are. So I love that. Yeah. And I think that message is an important one right now for all of us.
like as you said, Cold Vengeance was one of my favorites. Another one was in 1942. They go back to 1942 before Wolverine was Wolverine, and he's like a spy or an agent with the government, and he's looking for a doctor that they want to get. So he's in France, and the Nazis have invaded. It's called what is it? Old Soldiers. And it's so cool because Wolverine is all in black and a black toque, Canadian, you know, typical. And running all over, jumping over the ceilings and stuff and fighting with the Nazis. And he eventually meets Captain America. So that episode was just, I was in tears laughing when I watched it to prep for like X-Men 97 with Disney. Because here's Wolverine, like a hard nut that he is, tough as nails, and he gets up after Captain America throws his shield and knocks about a couple of Nazis off Wolverine, who was fighting 3 of them or something. And he looked up and he said, "I can't believe it, Mixer USA, red stars and stripes and all." And so Captain America says, "I like your style." To Wolverine, he's still down on the ground. He says, Wolverine says, "I wish I could say the same." Then they start. It goes on like that, but Wolverine won't let it rest about the outfit that he's got on. He said, "You never catch me wearing something like that." He said fatigues would be a little less obvious, but and then they're climbing up the side of a cliff with the claws or something. The 2 of them, and I wanted to tell her at the time I watched. He said, "Don't start that conversation again." He just looks over and says, "Where'd you get that thing anyway? It's got an itch." The big tough, it's got an itch. And I said, "Stop talking about material and stuff. Get up, you be Wolverine, young man." He gets up to the top and he takes the claws off that he had, little things that are like the claws, but like cut off so they could scale the cliff. Gives them to Captain America. And I love the writers, this kind of writing. He gives them back to Captain America and says, "Hey, these things could come in handy." Because he didn't have claws at the time. Yeah, and that episode, and Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was a great episode. Yeah. You see the religious, or they get into like Wolverine's like getting religion or something. It was just, they handle all that stuff in the series. So that's it. Goodbye.
Just enough time for 2 more, sorry.
X-Men 97 Season 2, so it's coming out this year. Have you done any recordings yet?
Oh yeah, we're done.
Is there any preview you can give us?
A lot of death. A lot of death.
He always says that. He always says that.
Everyone dies, everyone dies. It's gonna be a total bloodbath. You're gonna love it.
We're on episode 7.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I want to test your improv. Now, as your characters, what would you order if you all went in a car or a mode of transport to a fast food restaurant? You pull up to the drive-through window and like, "Hi, can I take your order, please?" How would you order as your respective character?
I would order hot curry.
I feel like you would have a more dignified.
Well, you're not
Was it fast? Is it
You
fast
think
food?
Beast is an elitist? I think Beast would be more humble.
You think so?
Yes. He would just order whatever was available, but he would probably like hot food because I do.
Well, I would say chili fries. Jubilee and I, we love going for chili fries.
What about Professor X? What would you order?
I think he'd be very finicky. I think he'd be like, "I would like a burger, but with no pickles, please. And onions always give me gas, so please, no onions and peppers and nothing too spicy, please."
He likes a very basic meal.
When the professor would order the secret menu, does anyone knew it's there?
Oh, he would of course know what the secret menu is. He could read everyone's mind.
Wolverine.
Oh, I don't even know if he eats.
I don't think he eats. But it would have to be really severe.
Beer.
It'd be like a teen burger from A&W.
Beer and roadkill.
Beer and roadkill, yeah.
Hi, Amber.
I can.
Nice cake. No
Can
cakes.
we do one more question? then?
Yes, one more question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, sugar.
Hey, baby.
It's sorry. It's quite a long question actually. So I'm sorry for making you late. I'm so sorry. Hi, everyone.
Everyone wait.
So for a lot of you were our childhood heroes. Not you, because you weren't in the original. Oh no, you are.
We still love you.
We do still love you. I promise.
Sort of.
I promise, Lenore, I won't cry. I won't cry. No, I won't cry. Who are your childhood heroes?
Superman. I love Superman. And when I was a little kid, I put a blanket around my neck, climbed up onto the garage roof, and I thought I could fly. And you know what? I didn't. And I hit the ground pretty darn hard.
But did you try again?
No.
Oh,
What?
Superman. Or Jughead from Archie Comics.
I don't know if I had like iconic heroes, but I loved Bewitched. I loved Bewitched, and I loved Thor. Or it must have been the hair or something. I don't know, but Thor did something to me as a kid.
It was his big hammer.
Yeah, right. I am not touching that one with a 6-foot pole, sugar.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you everyone for coming. It's been an amazing panel. Big round of applause to the guys.